Hello, everyone. So, I want to say thank you to everybody who's subscribed to my channel recently. Oh my god, I did not expect the Spider Man video to explode like it did. So, we got another Spider Man video for you right after that one. This is the Comic Conference review for Ultimate Spider Man Volume 4 with my friend Nerdword. He's going to give his introduction now.
Hey guys, it's Blake, Nerdword here. I was just gonna say, you guys are great, and go subscribe to my channel. I really don't know what it is. It's got some food reviews on it, an anime review.
One anime review of Kill la Kill, which I highly recommend. One of the best anime I've ever watched. No joke.
One food review too. For now,
We're just kind of we're all figuring everything out. But yeah, so Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 4. This is going to be the last Ultimate Spider-Man video we do for a while. We're actually gonna, after this one, and we should be able to do a Green Arrow review next. After that, we're gonna stop with Comic Conference for a little while. Not permanently. It's just gonna go on a hiatus till we get some things figured out. But anyway, so Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 4, Legacy. This is the Return of the Green Goblin. So the first issue in this volume, the cover of it, has a close-up of the Green Goblin with Spider-Man reflected in his eye, and I just wanted to comment on that because this is a pretty recurring theme with Spider-Man covers. There's one cover from the 90s, I believe, either late 80s, early 90s, with Venom, where it's just a close up of Venom's face, and you see Spider-Man in pretty much the same pose, reflected in his eyes. There was an issue with Doc Ock where you could see Spider-Man reflected in his glasses. I think that somebody actually did a tribute to that cover in the 90s, where they just redrew the same idea. There was an issue of the Spider-Girl comic that did the same thing with Venom, where you could see her reflected in Venom's eyes. So, yeah, just kind of a recurring theme with Spider-Man covers I've noticed, so I thought that was neat. But anyway, when we open the issue, we're introduced to this gang on roller skates, which I think that their name is the High Rollers, because they're in the the Ultimate Spider-Man video game. And, you have to do combat tours where you just fight waves of enemies. And I think that that's what they're called. They don't have roller skates in the game, but they use the tasers, so that's why I think that's who they're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're just tasing people, stealing their stuff, being real, pieces of garbage, and then one of them gets hit by a web, and then in comes Spider-Man, saying, "I can't believe I had to get out of line at Taco Bell for this." I like a lot of Spider-Man's dialogue here, where he says, "Do you guys know that I fight guys with morphing metal arms and actual electrical power? I'm A-list, baby. I'm a merchandising empire waiting to happen. And you? You can't even come up with a coherent group fashion statement." I'm not saying you have to put on the tights. Tights aren't for everyone, and by the looks of most of you, tights would definitely be a bad move. So yeah, this is perfect Spider-Man dialogue. I just wanted to comment on that. Your boy Zach, from the channel formerly known as Diversity in Comics, the way he put it is Spider-Man is a roast god, and so if his humor is in a way that Spider-Man, if you're fighting Spider-Man and he makes a joke at your expense, you're gonna feel bad about yourself, and that's how his humor works. So I just really like pointing that out. After that, we get this really nice splash page, which is one of the most famous images from Ultimate Spider-Man. I've used it as the thumbnail of a couple of my videos. So yeah, I really, again, love Mark Bagley. I don't know how you pronounce his last name, to be honest. I love his artwork, though. I said in the first video, I think he's my favorite Spider-Man artist. It's either him, Ramita Sr., or Todd McFarlane. Slipping on his name a minute there. But yeah, just one of those three. I've never really decided which one I like more, and they're all drastically different. So that's probably why I have a hard time choosing. But yeah, so he gets to class, and he's late. We see him having to get out of his costume on the roof. Then he has to rush into the classroom, crashes into the desk, spills a bunch of stuff over.
Yeah, I like this. I like these 2 pages where it shows them going to the classroom. But my one thing is, how do you slip? You're Spider-Man.
is just a little too frantic, I guess. He's not... Because he can will himself to stick to stuff. That's how it works. So I guess if he's not thinking about needing to stick to something, he just slides. Another thing I want to comment on is the coloring. Because it looks a little different here. Like, you'll notice as the books go on, with, like, at different stages of the book's run, it would have... The art would look kind of different like this. There's like a point later on where it actually kind of had an orange tint to it, and I never liked that. But this, I think, is actually pretty good. My favorite way that the book has looked would probably be the first half of volume, I think it's volume 8, because there's actually kind of, it's almost like two separate story arcs in volume. They connect, but they're different aspects of a story. And the first half of it is the coloring looking a certain way, and the second half is when it switches to the yellow, the orangish tint, I mean. The first half, I think that's the best the art and the coloring looked on that. We'll get to that probably sometime next year, but yeah, I just wanted to comment on that, because this is where it really starts to get kind of noticeable how it's changing. After that, we got Peter and Mary Jane talking about how Peter's grounded. I think they mentioned that this is a couple days after Volume 3. So he's just explaining all that to her, and then Harry shows up. So if you remember in Volume 1, after the whole business with the Green Goblin attacking the school, Harry was just kind of... He was sent away to go stay with, I think they said his uncle. Where was it? I think they said Iowa or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
And so now he's back. He and his father are back, and they're acting like none of that happened. Like that wasn't actually Norman, That was something else. So something interesting is going on here. And what the cool thing about it actually is I'm pretty sure in the first volume they never flat out showed Norman was the Goblin. I mean, it's Norman Osborn. Mm-hmm. But just reading this, they never flat out like showed you, yeah, it's him, so you could kind of maybe buy it a little bit here until, the big reveal later on when he shows what he can do. But for now, Harry's back.
And then we see Flash on the football field making fun of Peter, and then Harry comes up, to which Harry asks, had he come out yet in reference to Flash, making fun of him, calling him gay, and then we see Gwen getting in on it too, which I like.
And the little thing I just thought of is there was a JoJo animation where like Joseph Joestar goes, "I keep telling you I'm not gay." That's what I just thought of there. We'll probably do a JoJo review in the far off future eventually. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, JoJo's one hell of a drug. Anyway, so now we got a funny bit with the bully being bullied. So after that, Harry meets Gwen, and we get kind of a little bit of a setup that, he's attracted to her, she's kind of attracted to him, which is like a callback to the 60s comics where it was, a love triangle with Peter, Harry, and Gwen, and then Flash, and then Mary Jane, so it's kind of a love rectangle. And the 60s comics were a soap opera. But yeah, we got a little bit of a throwback to that. And Harry invites Peter to come over to his house. And so Pete is just, jumping around after school, heading home, just thinking to himself about how crazy it all is that Harry's back all of a sudden. Wait a minute, wasn't his dad that thing that attacked the school? What's going on here? He wants to see me. Does he know I'm Spider-Man? And I like this with him jumping around thinking to himself. But one thing, though, is that he's jumping around in his civilian clothing.
Yeah.
And that's a big no-no with Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. This version of Peter Parker is terrible about maintaining secret identity. But the traditional one from the regular Marvel Universe was so secretive about that. Like, he went out of his way to make sure nobody knew who he was. He wouldn't, unless if it was an emergency, he was never out and about without his costume. If he was out jumping around, had to have the costume on. Whether it was just the mask or whatever. Like, he was very careful about it. So I think that's kind of interesting how this version of him doesn't seem to be, like, as insane about keeping his secret.
Which I also believe is also due to him thinking about everything that's going on at the time.
Yeah.
You know?
He's got a lot on his mind, so he's not thinking about, he's just kind of distracted.
Yeah. And then at the bottom of this page, the bottom right, you see a 7-Eleven sitting there.
Yep. So he gets home, and then there's a limo out front. And I like this panel here where he's just like walking past the driver, just that look on his face, like, oh god. And then he walks in, and then there's like one of Norman Osborn's assistants, and it's all like, hey, Mr. Osborn wants to talk to you, so we'll take you in the limo. And Peter's like, well, you see, I'm grounded. And Aunt May's like, oh, I'm sorry, you're what? It's like, but you grounded me. He's like, no, I didn't. Go get in that limo, boy. So yeah, they get in the limo.
Which I honestly didn't really like how she's just so like, oh no, go ahead.
Yeah.
Which I
did
found...
a 180. It's like literally a few days ago, screaming like, "Oh, you get in, you're grounded," and then now it's just like, "Yeah, go ahead, get in the limo."
Which I believe any typical old lady isn't gonna be like that, but okay.
Yeah, so they get in the limo and they're driving down to Norman Osborn's penthouse, and I really liked this bit where they're in the limo and Peter looks out the window and he sees this figure on the bridge, and then it's just gone. I think that would have worked a little better if we showed him like looking and then look at like another panel of him looking away, then glancing back, because the way it looks is like he's looking constantly, like he would have seen the figure move. But I do like that effect. It's just kind of like, oh, was he really there? Was that just Peter's anxiety getting to him? But yeah, so they head into the city and they get to the penthouse and Harry greets him. We see, Peter thinking about how, nervous he is about all this, how his thoughts are just going all over the place. I'd always like those bits where we just get to see inside of Peter's head. Mm-hmm. Then he goes into Norman's office, and Norman has a little aquarium with sharks in it, like he's an actual Bond villain.
Yeah.
And then Peter walks in there, and the TV comes on. We see his fight with Doc Ock. And then Norman walks out of the shadows, laughing. He's like, so tell me, how do I look? Better or worse since the last time you saw me? And so I like this, where you see how menacing Norman is. He's just like, okay, you see this Spider-Man crap? You're done. Because the spider that bit you was my spider. So that makes you my property.
Now, again, something else that I find kind of weird is how any typical teenager isn't going to walk into a dark room, especially if they think that person's like the Green Goblin, Well, Peter, he's kind of, I don't know, he doesn't really have much of a choice here. It's just like kind of, you're all the way down here. You think somebody would probably like go in there with him first? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If I was Peter, I would have brought Harry along with me. Yeah. Because that is his friend. So why are you going in there alone, especially when you think that this might be the Green Goblin? Yeah, Harry said he had to finish with his therapist, so that's why he couldn't go in there with him. But yeah. Even then, though, I'd be like, no, I gotta go to the restroom. I'll be in a few minutes. Yeah, let's just kind of stall for a minute. But yeah, he just kind of wants to see what's going on with Norman. Thinking, maybe he actually isn't the Green Goblin. Mm-hmm. Maybe, since he knows about me getting bit by the spider, maybe he can help me. No. Oh, no. Complete opposite. No, he's like, Norman's like, yeah, no, you're my property, so you're going to do what I say. And let me show you what's going to happen if you don't. And then he pulls out the serum, just injects it into him. And then we see him transforming. And then we just get that, image of just him as the Hulk Goblin. Like, yeah, what was your question? Which I really like the art of him just asking, like, now what was your question? It shows how menacing he actually is. Mm-hmm. And then I also like how it just shows him just flat out just injecting himself. Just stabs himself. Doesn't care. And then you get to see his strength when he's not even fully turned yet, when he punches the desk and, like, cracks it, right? Yep. And then you get that, like, glowing stuff coming out of his chest, like, it's just kind of showing, like, the power that's about to, just come out of him. And then the next issue is, the cover is weird. I just want to comment on this, because now we finally got to some volumes that have the covers before each issue. Yeah. This has been like a problem with the earlier volumes, where they just kind of put a cover maybe
before an issue. You don't really know exactly where they're going to put it. But yeah, with this one, we start off, and it's just an image of Spider-Man on, a lamppost, which I would have put this as the first issue in this volume. I would have put that as the cover of that one. And I would have had the Green Goblin's face. I would have that be the cover of this one, because that would also add to the kind of suspense of, is the Green Goblin coming back in this? And then once we see the end of that, it's like, yeah, he's back. By the way, this image right here, I kind of wanted to comment on. This is just like a little thing to... I think they put these in here to space them out, so you have the covers in certain spots. So just put like a little image from later in the book. I'll just like take a picture of it so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. But anyway, we open up the issue and we see Spider-Man swinging around, not saying anything. We're not really sure what's going on here. Just a minute ago, he was being menaced by the Green Goblin. He just stops on a building, rips his mask off, and just throws up. And it's like, okay, well, something happened.
Yeah.
And then we go back and we see, 12 minutes ago, still in the same spot, and that's a really creepy image of the Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Cue the JonTron clip of, ew, I don't like goblins. Exact change only will be all over that with Goblin Slayer, which, by the way, go subscribe to Exact Change Only, friend of the channel. He's got some gameplay videos. Well, shout out for you, buddy, since you've been shouting me out in your videos. But yeah, so we got Green Goblin with these creepy red eyes.
And I love how the image that says 12 minutes ago, it also has Peter getting bit in the background.
Yeah. It's like we're seeing where this all began in the background, and how this has just led to this nightmare that's happening right now.
And it's really showing, it's like basically symbolizing that the Green Goblin has like all the evidence he needs, to really show that he is Spider-Man and stuff. And you take the last part.
Yeah, like if Peter were to, not do what he says, not only can he threaten his family, he can reveal his secret identity, he can do all these kinds of things. He really, he has him in a chokehold right now. And so then he takes the serum again to turn back to normal, and I like how it shows him switching back, and it's like, oh, this is the worst part. And he just kind of screams and he claws into his desk, which I kind of like to see if people would comment on the claw marks, like, Norman, what?
Yeah, my one thing is, how does nobody outside hear this?
Yeah, maybe it's a soundproof room.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he just transforms back, and he's just laying there, just like, where was I? Oh yes, Harry. It's just casually, none of that just happened, going on about what he's saying. And I do love how nonchalant he is, though. He's just putting on this towel, putting on this robe. It's just like, if you don't do what I say, first I'm going to torture and possibly murder your dear auntie, and I'll probably do it right in front of you. Or maybe I'll just destroy your little girlfriend, Mary Jane, right? And then it's just, he's just so evil.
Yeah.
And I do like that. He's really intimidating. The traditional Norman Osborn is just as crazy and evil and all that, but this one is just scary. But yeah, so after he gets done explaining all this stuff, all these terrible things he's going to do, he's like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go watch this video. So they watch this video, and it's all about, it's a documentary about Norman. And I love this page, these 2 pages right here, where it just shows as the documentary is going on. We see Peter in the center of the picture, and you've got all these panels around him, and they're all awkwardly positioned, and it's like they're all closing in on him. Mm-hmm. It's like how Peter's got nothing he can do. He's got nowhere to go. He's completely at Norman's mercy, and so you've just got this very claustrophobic feeling from this page. So I really like that. And then he just runs out of there and heads back to his house. We get this scene where Aunt May just comforts him because she can tell something went wrong.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, you know what? Maybe I was a little too mean with your punishment. We can be a little bit more lenient about it. So we're just kind of establishing that. And then Peter, afterward, he talks with Mary Jane on the phone. So, yeah, they're talking on the phone, and then Gwen shows up. and she just kind of like barges into the basement, and dead ass. Anyway,
I honestly just it shows how just crazy Gwen is. How she just randomly just shows up in the middle of the night. It's just why
we see that she's having trouble in her like with her family and all that. You'll see more of that as it goes on.
Has she been to his house before?
I don't think so.
I was thinking that too. Like, how did
she just showed up
know?
last volume?
How would she know?
I don't actually, to be honest, that's probably Gwen is probably a stalker. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised with this version of her. Oh my god, they could not have made her any drastically different than any other version of Gwen, and I like that because traditional Gwen Stacy, fine as a person, really boring as a character. I'm gonna say it. The most significant thing done with her in the traditional comics was her death, and so I do like how they, changed her here and they made her,
a fucking stalker.
She's more interesting as a character here.
And something I do want to point out is Peter is wearing a Cartman shirt from South Park. It says Beefcake, and it's just got Cartman on it yelling it.
I mean, it's not actually Cartman, but it's supposed to be. You can tell it's supposed to be Cartman.
Yeah.
It's a South Park reference. But yeah, so he goes and tells Aunt May, hey, this crazy girl from my school just showed up in the basement, and and Aunt May's like, oh, what? We're gonna go make some eggs.
Why?
We get this dramatic panel of her, getting up, putting her robe on, like, put on some pants. Aunt May's gonna make some eggs.
Why?
Aunt May and her eggs.
I mean, any grandma, they're known to feed everyone, so...
Yeah, in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, there's like a whole, like, kind of a running joke about him needing to pick up eggs, which, by the way, in my Tobey Maguire Spider-Man video, I don't completely hate the Amazing Spider-Man. I don't like... Really, if you take out that last line of dialogue at the end of the movie where he breaks the promise to Captain Stacy, it's an okay movie. It's not completely terrible. It's okay. I don't completely hate it. I probably might do another video just talking about my thoughts on all the Spider-Man movies in general. I don't hate Tom Holland's Spider-Man either. Actually, I mentioned that in the video. I like him. I just don't really... There's a lot of decisions they made with him in those movies that I don't like. Imagine that. I can like more than one actor that's played Spider-Man. I just have issues with different things about them. But yeah, so there's like a running joke in the first Amazing Spider-Man where it's like, you got to pick up eggs. And, she's like, can you pick up some eggs? And they're on the phone. And then he comes home, didn't get the eggs. It's like, I'll go get the eggs. And then he comes back at the end of the movie, pulls the eggs out of his backpack. So yeah, just Aunt May and her eggs.
And then we see her dad show up, and he's talking with Aunt May and talking about his job and how she's, kind of crazy. And then at the end, she offers Captain Stacy some eggs.
Yep. That's gonna be like a little thing later on in the story, like Aunt May and Captain Stacy. Let's just say she's looking to remarry.
Oh my god.
You'll find out when we get to like volume 7, she goes to a therapist and they kind of like, they talk about that whole thing. Yeah. Aunt May, like that, you find out in this one issue where she sees her therapist that there's a lot going on with her that you're not like seeing just yet. She's dealing with a lot of grief from Ben and all the stuff going on with Peter and everything. But anyway, so we cut to school the next day. Peter's wearing a Thundercats t-shirt, which you'll notice in like a couple panels. There's a lot of references in this. But yeah, so Gwen like just runs up and just hugs Peter from behind like that, and Mary Jane is right there. So now we're getting a little bit more of Mary Jane's jealousy with Gwen, which is I'm going to be honest, it gets pretty annoying. I love Mary Jane. She's my favorite of all of Peter's love interests, but oh my god, does the jealousy with Gwen get annoying later on in this? But we'll get to that when we get to it.
Now, I will defend...
clarify what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that she shouldn't be jealous, but she goes over the top. There's a part where she screams at Peter for no reason. Literally, all it is just that Gwen needed somewhere to stay for a while, and then Mary Jane's like, "Oh, what? Huh? You trying to do something? Did you tell her that you're Spider-Man?" I'm like, "What the hell?"
I'm just referencing this one bar. I can see why she would start to get jealous, considering he did get off the phone randomly, and she just hugs him randomly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like a little bit of it is understandable, but she goes crazy later on. But I guess they're teenagers, So But anyway, after that, we see Peter talking with this lady who was in Volume 2, and I mentioned that this was going to come up again. That there's something going on here, and we start seeing where she's like, so you were at Norman Osborn's house the other night, and did he threaten you? And he's like, what are you talking about? Did he reveal?
Is just every person in this universe stalking him?
Okay, everybody knows he's Spider-Man. Eventually, it's a running joke. Eventually in this series, that everybody finds out he's Spider-Man. Wait till he meets the X-Men. It's probably the funniest bit of that. But anyway. Yeah, so she's like, did he tell you that he knows you're Spider-Man? And Peter's like, what? And then, he's like freaking out, like, hey, what's going on here? And then she says, she just says to somebody you don't see who's there, do you want to take over from here, sir? Mm-hmm. And then you see, the wall starts getting all wavy, and then issue ends there. And then we jump to the next issue, picks up where that left off, and we see it's Nick Fury. It's Sam Jackson, Nick Fury himself. So yeah, Nick Fury, this is the first time in the Spider-Man book we've seen him. And so, since it was the Ultimate Universe, it's a different timeline, they just decided to redesign him. And so they modeled him after Samuel L. Jackson. And then Samuel L. Jackson got to play the version of Nick Fury that was based on him. So this is where we're first introduced to him in the Spider-Man book. I think I'm pretty sure that the Ultimates had started by now. If it hadn't concluded the first story arc, it was in the middle of it. So you would have got to know Nick Fury better over there. He was in an issue of Ultimate X-Men. But this is where Spider-Man's getting to meet him.
I do just want to say it is awesome how Samuel Jackson played him. I think that's really cool.
I mean, who else do you cast after that?
I do like his introduction to where he just phases in like that. I find that really cool.
Nick Fury, gotta have a cool entrance. So now we see Nick explaining, the Super Soldier program and how Norman Osborn was trying to recreate it, and explaining his history with Norman and how he hates him and all that. And so he's explaining all this stuff to Peter that, they'll be monitoring what Norman's doing. They can't go after him right now because legally they weren't supposed to be spying on him to begin with. Mm-hmm. But as soon as he makes one wrong move, then they'll go after him. And Peter's like, that's bullshit. He threatened me and my family. Go get him now. And he's like, I can't, but I'm letting you know we'll have an eye on him. So yeah, Peter gets a little bit of an attitude with Nick. And he's like, Nick's like, optimism is a revolutionary act. And Pete's like, who told you that? The guy who poked out your eye. And he gets up, it's like, yes.
I do want to say one thing about this. The one panel, he's doing the same pose Aunt May did.
Yeah.
Cook
and the lady in the background is in the same position like Peter was, only it's reverse. Nick Fury versus Aunt May. That's the next Infinity War. Nick Fury versus Aunt May.
It turns out the entire time he's been hiding an Infinity Stone inside of his eye socket.
God. Oh my god, there's one Thanos missed. Okay, let's move on. So, Pete heads home, and he sees the limo outside of his house again, and, they're about to take Aunt May now, and he's like, no. I'm like, no, Aunt May, you don't need to go down there, and he's just like, hey, listen, Norman Osborn's not a good guy. He's bad touch, stranger danger. We don't need to deal with him. And Aunt May's like, oh, okay. So,
why is Aunt May even going when she saw him come home the other night from like that?
yeah.
That's a little weird.
Yeah, that's a little awkward the way they did that. Might have been, maybe they didn't like. I kind of feel like that might have been like a first draft thing. They didn't really tighten up, but well, anyway, I think it works. It's not like story breaking, but you kind of think about that, like, But anyway, so they leave, and Peter is like swinging off, and he's gonna go have his confrontation with Osborn. He's like, okay, you know what? He's threatening me. He's threatening my aunt. I'm gonna go kick his ass.
Yeah.
If I die doing this, well, then I die doing it. So he swings down there, and we see Norman already turned into the Goblin, and they're getting ready for their little showdown.
Do you think Norman was going to attack his home?
Yeah, I think so. I think he was probably going to do something to try to scare him after.
Not going.
Because since Aunt May didn't show up, he's like, okay, so he's made his choice, so time to force things a little bit more.
Why do you think they wanted Aunt May?
Just to have more to threaten Peter, like just to kind of like as a threat to Peter, like, hey, just reminding you we can get at her anytime.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, Peter shows up and he just kind of yells at him and is like, hey, you know what? I should sue you for that spider biting me. I should sue you for that and all that. He's just basically telling him, screw you. I'm not doing what you tell me to. And Norman's like, okay. There's Mary Jane down there, conveniently. Bye. And jumps down and just goes and grabs her. And then just leaps off. And it's like, man. Well, funny if the first Spider-Man movie came out, because this is exactly what happens there. Just gonna snatch Mary Jane. I'm gonna take her to a bridge. Why is it always a bridge with this man? This is how he killed Gwen in the original comics. He threw her off a bridge. He takes Mary Jane to the bridge in the first movie. He takes Mary Jane in the 90s animated series, because they didn't have Gwen Stacy in it, because kids can't handle death, apparently. So they censored death constantly in that show, so they didn't have Gwen in that show. So they recreated that scene with Gwen, but with Mary Jane. So just like in the movie, he takes her to the bridge. And she doesn't die, because, like, what I was saying, like, he takes Mary Jane because Gwen wasn't in the show to begin with, but he now takes Mary Jane to the bridge, so it's always bridges with this man. Anyway, after that, we go to the next issue, and we see, what happened 20 minutes ago. Lots of stuff being out of order time in this volume, I've noticed, but we see what happened a little bit ago where Harry is in the therapy session, and we start seeing how the therapist is kind of brainwashing Harry.
Yeah.
And I also want to comment that his therapist's name is Dr. Warren. And that's interesting because in the original comics, Dr. Warren went by the name of the Jackal, and he created clones. He's responsible for one of the most convoluted Spider-Man stories of all time, the Clone Saga. Have I told you about the Clone Saga?
No.
It was a story in the 90s. Well, first there was one in the 70s, and it was just one clone, and it was just a short thing. Then they redid that idea in the 90s with the clone came back, and then there was a bunch of other clones, and it was like, oh, the clone was the real Spider-Man all along. In all these decades, you've been seeing the fake Spider-Man. And it's like, what the hell? You're just going to drop that on us? And then by the end of it, they said, no, actually, the clone was the clone. This has always been the real Peter. Sorry. We should have thought that through. It was kind of a dumb thing to do. And it went on and on and on. It overstayed its welcome, and it just got so stupid. So it's almost killed the Spider-Man comics. Terrible, terrible storytelling. Anyway, this is just a little reference to him, so I thought that was neat.
And about the therapist thing, it really does show even more how Harry's father is even more fucked up. Just flat out just brainwashing your kid. Like, really? And then we do get some foreshadowing with the aquarium, which will happen later on.
Focusing more on that. Yeah, by the way, I don't know if you can hear it, but there is music in the background. We can't do anything about that right now.
Get a copyright strike.
Oh, God, no. Swear to God, if a tiny little bit gets in there and they copyright strike me for that, Ooh. Anyway, back to the story. We see Norman is injecting himself with the serum turned to the goblin. And then we start to see how he sees the world. Mm-hmm. And we see that he is full-on schizophrenic.
Yeah.
He just sees, like, little, like, kind of Spider-Man ghost figures all around him. And they're just talking to him. And he sees Spider-Man as more like a spider-like alien-looking creature.
Mm-hmm. And I like how some of the ghosts, if you want to call them that, are like boosting his ego, and then some of them are reminding him of like different things from the past, like and such. So he is constantly like hearing voices and seeing things.
And one of them is just like, my eyes itch, just randomly.
Yeah, it's really creepy in my opinion, but it shows it more in depth about his character.
See how out of his mind he is.
Yeah.
One thing I never really noticed actually is how the spider logo, the way Norman's seeing it, it's like crawling around him. So that was kind of an interesting little touch. But yeah, once Norman starts going to attack Mary Jane, we see it slowly like switch back to reality. Like you see Spider-Man's features start to become more, like they should be instead of all alien looking. And then we're back to where we left off, where he jumps down, he grabs Mary Jane, and he takes off. And Peter starts swinging after him until they get to the bridge. The bridge. Always the bridges. So Norman just throws Mary Jane off the bridge, and Peter jumps after her. And then he catches her with his web line, he swings up, and they fake you out for a minute, where they, at the end of this is the end of one issue, so back when this came out, it's like, wow, did Mary Jane just die? Because it's exactly how Gwen Stacy died.
No, I don't know anything else about the other comics after this, so I honestly thought maybe she did die. I don't really know much about this series of comics.
Yeah, if you haven't been following this series, he's very new to comics, and the Ultimate Spider-Man books were one of the ones I gave him to get more into him.
And so I honestly thought maybe they're trying to do something like what happened with Gwen.
Just reverse
whenever I read this, but yeah, obviously not right after this.
Yeah, so the next page, now we see how stuff happened from Nick Fury's perspective and how he was keeping an eye on everything. And so as soon as Norman throws Mary Jane, he's like, open fire. So they just start shooting at him. And so just like when he first fought Goblin, and those guys in the helicopters were shooting at him, and it didn't kill him. Again, we see he's got that healing factor, so they're shooting him and he's not dying. So then we cut to the next page, and we see that Mary Jane's okay. And then we see Spider-Man looks up, sees the fight going on, and then he hails a taxi driver and is like, "Hey, take her somewhere safe, get her out of here." We see the taxi driver has a Superman tattoo, by the way, I wanted to comment on.
Wow.
Yeah. So...
Now, why would a taxi driver be near that?
It's New York, man. There's taxis everywhere.
I know that. I just was like, wouldn't...
A Spider-Man supporting taxi driver conveniently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you. But yeah, so... Peter, he's just like, oh man, that just happened. I almost lost her. She almost died. And he's just like, Osborn. And we just see his eyes are all squinty. And it's like when Spider-Man's eyes get squinty, he's mad. And his eyes are usually so big in this art style. It's just like, ooh, yeah. Okay, Norman's gonna die. So we cut back. We see Norman's fighting the Shield guys, and then just bam, Peter jumps in, just hits him, and just start beating him down. And this is what I commented on in my Tobey Maguire video, where I said when you get Spider-Man mad, he's almost unstoppable. Mm-hmm. And so he just gets into a fury, and he's not quite angry enough because he stops for a minute, and Norman's able to grab him and just chucks him off. And the music in the background's getting louder, and if it gets any louder, I'm probably going to be just like Peter in a second, and I'm probably going to go crazy. Well, anyway, Peter gets chucked off the bridge, and Norman takes off, to head back to his penthouse. He's like, I need more serum. He's been weakened by the fight. Peter sees where he's going, and he's like, oh man, he's heading towards Harry. I gotta go after him.
Yeah.
So Norman gets back to his penthouse, and he takes the serum, and then Harry walks in on him. And then Norman, he says, cellar door, which as a kid, I didn't understand that. But like now I know that's a code word. There's a different word for it, but it's like with sleeper agents, like they have a certain word that'll, activate things that have been programmed in their minds. And so for Harry, like, saying the word cellar door, that's his code word to like knock him out. I just thought he passed out from shock when I was a kid. So yeah. I didn't understand why Norman said cellar door. But yeah, so he passes out, and then Norman, injects himself, and then cue the Mario sound effect when you get a mushroom, because he gets bigger.
And his horns grow a bit.
Yeah. Green Goblin, Mark II. Bigger, badder, and hornier.
Literally. So, a few things I want to say is, again, he's super fucked up. We see, he said cellar door just to knock out Harry. Who on earth would, do that?
He's kind of abusive. He cares about Harry, but he's so messed up in the head that he doesn't realize that, he's doing things to, harm his own son.
And then one thing I like about the, I guess, super version of the Green Goblin, I don't know what to call it.
We'll just call him Super Goblin.
He looks more like, I guess, a vampire would. With the bat, yeah, he looks like he's just doing like a hissing sound. Then he's got like the batish ears.
I reject my humanity, Peter. Lots of JoJo references in this.
Yeah, I like his design a whole lot here.
Yeah. And then we get more of some good Spider-Man humor where he says, I hope you don't think I'm going to let you drive home like that. You still in there, Osborn? Can you even hear me, you junky freak? This ends tonight. Yeah. I'm not scared of you, one way or another, tonight. And then Norman jumps at him, just bam, just smacks him right in the face. So, yeah, Peter, he's still kind of like, making the jokes and all that when, like he said before, he wants to pee in his pants, but he makes the jokes to keep himself from freaking out. But then Norman gets the upper hand, grabs him, chucks him through the shark tank. His costume gets all torn up, which is how it always used to be in the Spider-Man movies. He has to get his costume torn up in some form or another. Yeah. And then so Norman starts strangling him, and it's like, oh, shit. Harry wakes up.
Dead.
Harry wakes up like, oh, what? Huh? Then we get another comic cover that has nothing to do with what's going on in the issue. And then we open it up, and we see, where we left off. Peter's in trouble, but then we got the S.H.I.E.L.D. guys showing up. Harry's woken up, and it's just like, again, he's like, what? Huh? Dad? What? Peter? What? Huh? I'm scared.
Help.
So Peter manages to get away from Norman, and then he's like, okay, I got no time to be cute. I can't even stop to make jokes anymore. I gotta finish this right now. So like he grabs the desk and he throws it at him, but Norman, tosses it aside and it crashes through the window. And Peter's like, "Oh, that was stupid." So website is like, "Okay, I got to stop that from hitting anybody."
Here, with the desk, it shows how he is trying to stop the situation, and then he immediately realizes that it's stupid. It shows, I guess, how he is quick thinking.
He's quick thinking, but that's also kind of a detriment, right? He's thinking fast, like, how can I end this fight as quickly as possible, but not realizing that he's also creating other problems for himself. He's very frantic right now.
And then, you see Harry just straight up stab his dad.
Oh, yeah.
Just in the back, out of nowhere, which I was honestly surprised. I wasn't expecting that at all. Mm-hmm. Because
even the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent is surprised.
Because
even Speedwagon is afraid. Let's put in another JoJo reference.
I've really only seen the first 3 Spider-Man movies. And so I remember, Harry turning into the Green Goblin, so I was surprised to see him here actually just murder his dad.
Well, doesn't really murder him, but try to.
Yeah.
Like, and he'll, in that moment, it's just like, I gotta save my friend here. And then Norman turns around ready to mess somebody up, and he sees it's Harry, and he's like, oh, I don't know what to do about that. I'm gonna just have a seizure. He just starts spazzing out of nowhere. I think actually it might be the Goblin serum suddenly, like, it's because he overdosed on it, and it was working for a minute, and then it finally caught up to him, and it just, starts harming him until he finally just turns back to normal and just passes out. He's not dead, by the way.
I thought he was.
No, he'll come back later. He comes back in the video game also. For me, one of the most frustrating parts of the game, actually, because there's like a sequence where he knocks this section of parts of a billboard down on top of these people, and you gotta like lift it up off of them while he's throwing fireballs at you, and you gotta try to do this strength meter to get it off them. And you gotta do it just the right way, and he's throwing fireballs at you, and many rage quits happened when I was a kid. And then the actual part where you fight him, it's like his fireballs will track you. Like, you'll dodge them, but then they'll come at you anyway. Wow. They're really hard to dodge, but once you get a rhythm down with it, then it's actually pretty fun. There's a part where like he grabs Spider-Man, he throws him into a building, and he jumps in, and he's like, "Let's finish this." And Spider-Man says, "I agree. What are we finishing again?" But it's funny because like he did not expect to fight Goblin. Like, he went into a building to try to find this guy called the Beetle. And then the Green Goblin blasts him out, and Goblin like jumps out and takes off, and Spider-Man's just like, "Oh, great." So it's just like, Green Goblin's back, okay.
And then we see Harry fainted, and Nick Fury walks in, which...
He literally walks in on air, which also confused me as a kid. I think he has like some kind of like... I don't remember. He has like some kind of technology that lets him float down like that.
He's got everything.
He's Nick motherfucking Fury, you know? So, yeah, they check on Norman and all that. You'll notice we're cussing a lot in this video. We do not censor ourselves. No restraint will be had here. Just want to comment on that. Anyway.
But that's all I have to say about that. Do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, we got this part where Nick... words some things pretty badly, where he says to Peter, when you turn 18, you belong to me. And I'm like, Nick, he just got done fighting a guy who said that he belonged to him. Stop. Nick. Think first. He's a 15-year-old who just went through something really traumatic. Calm down.
Fury's not just, a super secret spy leader.
He's a super asshole, too.
He's also a pimp.
Does Nick Fury need to use his pimp hand, Peter? But anyway, yeah, so he tells him that when later on Peter confronts him about it, and Fury's like, "No, that's not what I meant. I meant you're going to be one of the Ultimates. Yeah. You're going to work with Iron Man, with Captain America. You're going to be part of a team. Legally, you have to because of your powers and all. I'm sorry about that, but I don't mean you're going to be a prisoner. I mean you're going to work for my team."
Which, yeah, when I first read that, I was like, what? Why? That's fucked up.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe they changed it afterward because of how that looks. Like, maybe that's what they intended there. And they're like, oh, wait a minute.
No, never. No.
Nick Fury's kind of, that's not a good idea. But yeah, so Peter leaves, and he goes and finds Mary Jane, and she's at, this abandoned warehouse. Mm-hmm. This is also in the video game. This is like a little spot they go to at certain points. Like in the beginning of the game, Mary Jane is fixing up like some damage to his costume, and she's like, meet me at the place later. So you do a little tutorial, and then you go to the place, which is this place, and then she gives you the costume. So I thought that was kind of neat how they did that. And they do go to here a few times later in the series. But yeah, so we see Mary Jane is okay, but there's going to be she's going to have some problems because of all this, she's been traumatized now, and that'll come up later. So, that's the end of this volume. So, closing thoughts?
This volume to me really showcased the Goblin saga, and, for now, the current one, I don't know if there's going to be another one in the future.
Oh yeah, there's actually there's a mini series they did, called Ultimate Six, which is the Sinister Six, and it's not part of the regular Ultimate Spider-Man book. It was its own thing to itself, and it had a different artist and everything. And now there's a bunch of planes flying over, and we've had to stop the recording for a little bit because they keep flying over. Anyway, there was the miniseries called Ultimate 6. It had a different artist and everything. It kind of, when I was a kid, I didn't like it because it was so different, but now, like, I'm like, It's not, I don't think it's one of the best stories, but it's a crossover with the Ultimates, which is pretty neat. There's a fun bit in it where Nick Fury's like, "Team, I want you to meet Spider-Man," and he's out of his costume, and Tony Stark is just like, "Did you go back in time to get him?" But yeah, we'll get to that sometime next year. And there's another plane. Do you guys like these videos? Do you guys like these? I like them because I get to be a little bit sillier than in my normal videos. Anyway, yeah. Hopefully there won't be a whole lot of that in future videos. Okay, it's crossed over, or passed over, whatever. It's hot in here, and I'm starting to get silly. Internal screaming. Lots of internal screaming. If you're new to the channel and you didn't watch the other comic conferences, this is the first one you've watched. Yeah, these are both the more analytical videos because they're longer and we talk more about the comics and all that, and they're also the sillier videos because I've got someone else to talk with, and that's when I come out of my shell more. So, yeah, where were we? You were giving your closing thoughts?
I enjoyed it. 10 out of 10. I like I said, I really like in all seriousness, I really like the Goblin, the entire Goblin story in this. It showcased it very well. It showcased how much of a creep Gwen can be. And all the struggles Harry is really dealing with.
Yeah, I mentioned that, I don't remember if I said it while we were recording or if I said it in between the recordings, but Harry is one of the most tragic characters in the Spider-Man story. You do see a lot of that in this series. But anyway, yeah, so really good volume.
God damn it, there's a fucking bug.
So what else can we interrupt the recording with?
Damn it.
I'm keeping all this in, by the way. Anyway, yeah, so I think that's all we've got to say. If you want to subscribe to Nerdword, there will be a link in the description to his channel. There will also be a link to Exact Change Only's channel. Again, he does gameplay videos. He's been doing a playthrough of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. Someone just got a message. He's doing a playthrough of Resident Evil. So yeah, go check him out. So that's pretty much all we've got to say here. Like I said, I think we're going to be able to do a Green Arrow review. Not tonight, because this went on way too long. But eventually we're going to do a review for Green Arrow, The Longbow Hunters. So yeah, we'll get to that eventually. But till then, thank you for watching. Hope to see you next time, and you have a good day.